We're live.
Oh, wait, already? I didn't even see the countdown.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, we're live.
No, that's all right.
All right.
Game on.
Game on. We're here.
How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thank you. All good. So we're recording 2 on the bounce, aren't we? Might even do 3 on the bounce.
Yeah, we're going hard this afternoon.
Yeah. So if you are listening to these episodes in order, you might just notice over the next 3 weeks that they gradually decline in quality because the more we fatigue.
Or improve.
Or improve.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that first one was we had a bit of rust to get off because it had been so long.
Yeah, shake that off. Yeah, your rust was displaying itself in full view when we were playing a bit of snooker last night.
Yeah.
Although you did turn around and say that's probably my best ever performance or visit to the snooker table.
I mean, I've only ever played snooker once, and it was last night. So
no, that's really.
I mean, I think so. Yeah, I think I've hit balls on a snooker table, but I've never played like a game from start to finish.
Really? That surprises me.
Because I was so good. You mean?
No, you just love a pub sport, don't you? So
yeah, I do. Yeah,
I guess you played a lot of pool.
They're quite loads of pool. Snooker tables quite hard to come by.
Okay.
You know, like when was the last time you went to the pub and saw a snooker table?
Yeah, they're just so huge, aren't they?
They are, yeah. I mean, the amount of seats. It's all you've got to optimise for space in pubs now. That's why they're all getting rid of their pool tables.
Yeah, and they're serving shit burgers instead for like 15 quid.
Yeah, shit burgers on 15 quid if you're lucky.
Yeah. Well,
God.
We are in Norwich.
Oh, where's that pub that's selling 15 quid burgers? That's where we're having our Christmas party next.
Yeah, that's it. If you're listening, Inbox Club team, it's Weatherspoons this year.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you want to talk about in this app?
So we're going to talk about repurposing our newsletters because people keep moaning about how newsletters are hard work. So we're not going to make them any easier, but we're going to say, look, you've done that hard work. Now you can make that work go further.
Okay, nice. So repurposing. So we're going to take the content that's in our newsletter, we're going to repurpose it, recycle it, and then we're going to post it or use it somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a short episode, Jay.
Yeah, I think it will be. Should we wrap it up there?
I mean, we could do.
Just repurpose your newsletter.
Yeah.
I think maybe the first thing I would say is that if you're in marketing, then you'll know this. And you might need to be reminded. If you're not in marketing, you might already know this, or you just need to be reminded, or you might just not know this. But you can't just say one thing once and just hope that everyone's heard it and you don't need to talk about it again. So in marketing, we need to repeat ourselves. We need to be known for doing something specific, for selling something specific. And so we have to be what we might perceive internally as being that annoying person who will always go on about the same topic again and again and again. Because the likelihood that someone does receive every single one of your messages across every single one of your channels is very, very small. And even if someone does see the same marketing message twice or more than twice, they're not going to begrudge you for that. It's not as if, it's going to be like, well, Jesus Christ, I've already seen that once, and why am I seeing it for the 5th time now? No, said no one ever. Unless, well, I will say this, unless you're watching a TV show and every single ad break has the same advert every single time, then that's annoying and jarring. But in general,
you ever get it where sometimes you're watching a TV show and an advert comes on and then the same advert just gets repeated, like back to back?
You've just described hell to me.
Yeah, that sometimes that happens.
I hate adverts. I think I might have even said this on the podcast before. I went to see Mission Impossible on Friday evening at the cinema, and they've got like adverts, then they've got trailers, and then now they have more adverts, plus all of these like weird like cinema things. It's like, okay, well, here's an IMAX thing, and then here's like a Odeon thing, and that man with the magician's hat waving a wand and saying it enter the magic.
I hate that guy.
And it's like 45 minutes I'm sat there before the film even starts.
I also have a bit of a phobia towards like the sound of people eating. and there's an advert in a cinema where they play the sound of people eating.
Yeah.
And then like mobile phones start going off, and it's like
It's
it's
triggering.
it's really triggering. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm now going to turn up 40 minutes late for every screening I go to because I know I won't miss any of the film, which is
Smart.
mad. 40 minutes is crazy. If someone turned up 40 minutes late to a Zoom call, that would be crazy. For me, that it's too many adverts.
Yeah. And that's it, guys. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. That's run over. Okay, so we don't have to be scared of repeating our marketing message unless it happens to be at the start of Mission Impossible on a Friday night.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice caveat, actually, Jay. Because that's probably a big fear for some listeners.
So with that in mind, then what we're talking about here is taking the content that we've worked so hard on in our newsletter, and we want to use it somewhere else. James, what are some ways in which people can do that?
Yeah, so I think like you have to see your newsletter as like the long form video of your written output. So it's very popular these days for businesses, content creators to create one long video, let's say like a 15-minute long piece of content. And then from that, they can get like 20 short videos. And we sort of do that with this podcast, Jamie, don't we? Where, we'll produce this and then we'll get 3 or 4 shorts out of it. And that's cool. That your newsletter is that long video, but it's for written output instead. So from every newsletter, you ought to be able to, assuming that you're sending a conventional length of newsletter, which is, kind of around 400 to 800 words. Maybe you're not, in which case power to you, but this may not be as relevant. But if you're sending within that length, you should be able to get 2 or 3 LinkedIn posts from it. You should be able to get a blog post from it, maybe even 2 blog posts as well. You may even want to turn it into a podcast, and platforms like Beehive, for example, we're not sponsored, but they are one example of a email marketing platform that they're a newsletter platform, I suppose, but businesses use them too, where they have a feature that enables you to immediately turn your newsletter into a podcast, and it's read out by some AI voice, and it sounds pretty good. Yeah, there are loads of ways that you can turn your newsletter into other forms of content. I actually think, Jamie, I'll be controversial here and say that I think AI is the best way to do this, because your input is so good, right? I'm not saying write the newsletter with AI. Sure, use AI to help, but write the newsletter yourself. But then once you've done that effort, that's then 95% of the work done. And it's that extra exertion, that extra 5% where you can then feed that into your AI tool of choice. It might be ChatGPT or Claude or, Gemini or whatever it is, Copilot if you're restricted at work. Feed it in and say, create 3 LinkedIn posts from this using the same tone, or turn this into a web-friendly blog post. Or whatever it might be. So I think AI is definitely your friend here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think that's lazy?
No, I don't think it's lazy at all. I think with that caveat that we are creating something good. And so what we've effectively got in terms of, we've, written the newsletter content, and that's good. So what we've got is a good prompt for the AI tool then, because we've got this great piece of content. We've done 95% of the work. Some people who are AI experts saying, well, you should be getting AI to do more of the work, so you're not doing 95% of the work. But I think for this point here, you've put the copy and paste the content in and say, look, repurpose this into a few LinkedIn posts, keep the tone. This is what I want to achieve. These are the things I want to avoid. And then it will spit these out for you, and then you've got something you can just use straight away, and it doesn't feel like you're cheating, and the quality is still good because you've got that really good prompt. One thing that we're playing around with at the moment with a current client is saying, okay, well, their newsletter is really good, and we've been sending it for them for maybe like over a year now, or maybe a year. But what we want to do is compile all of the additions of their newsletter, and we want to turn it into an ebook, and we could say, okay, well, now this is a resource. So we have to use a bit of AI to work to compile it all and to put it into something. But now what we need to do is go through and copy edit it and say, okay, well, there's some things here that don't belong in this ebook, but there's some things that are. We need to now go through and comb through it, and that's quicker. That saves time, but we're still using an AI tool to do that. And it's another way of repurposing a newsletter.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think if you are already cutting corners on your newsletter, that will obviously be reflected in the content that you that is produced off the back of that. I guess that's the message here, isn't it? Is that using AI to recycle your content works, but only if the original content is really strong. And yeah, I think, the thing that I like about this so much, Jamie, is that not only do you get more out of that content, so more visibility, more reach in different areas as well. Like, for example, if you're creating a blog that is SEO friendly, then that could potentially be discoverable through Google search. If you're creating LinkedIn posts, you're reaching your LinkedIn following and hopefully others beyond that circle as well. But also, the content that you're repurposing from your newsletters can be used as nets to catch new subscribers for your newsletter as well. So there's an acquisition play here too. We're not just making the content go further. What we might add, for example, at the end of each LinkedIn post is, by the way, this was lifted from the newsletter we sent last week. Subscribe here if you want. We might need to be careful with links because it's LinkedIn, but thinking about this repurposed content in terms of what it might do to attract new subscribers to the newsletter is also really valuable. So add a CTA, and post it in different places. Create a Twitter thread from it if you're still on that platform. Post it into Reddit as well, into a relevant subreddit. Making it go as far as it can isn't just good for the visibility of your business or your newsletter brand or whatever it is, but it's also really good for subscriber acquisition.
Nice. A question that some people might have in their minds if they're listening to this is, okay, well, you're saying that I should take my newsletter and that I should repurpose it into other places. Why not the other way around? Why should I not write the content in other places and then repurpose it into a newsletter?
Yeah, I think my answer would just be that we always talk about exclusivity. So I think this is a case of the hierarchy of subscriber or follower. And the hierarchy of follower that we subscribe to here at the Inbox Club is that your email newsletter subscribers are way more important than followers on LinkedIn, for example, or followers on other social media channels. And so it comes down to where in the funnel these people sit. And I think anyone who's following you on LinkedIn, for example, or not even necessarily following you, because I guess they're slightly further into the funnel, but anyone who discovers you via LinkedIn is at the very top of that funnel. What you want to do is move those people over to your newsletter. So if you're just posting stuff that they can already get on LinkedIn, or they can already get from your blog, they're not going to take that additional step to give away some of their data in exchange for content from you. This comes down to how much we value a newsletter subscriber versus LinkedIn. And because we value the newsletter subscriber more, they need to be the first to get the good stuff.
Okay, nice, good answer.
Thanks.
I think there's not really much else to say on this subject. I don't necessarily feel like we need to do a hot take either. I think my message here is to just that little bit of extra work can go a really long way. So just take that content that you've already written, and that doesn't start. This isn't something that we're saying, okay, start from tomorrow. This could be like, okay, we'll start from last year. Dig out your newsletters and you've got all this content, you've got this archive of stuff that you've written. Okay, some of it might be, not very relevant anymore because it was about an SEO update that happened way back when, or some change in HR legislation or whatever it was back then. But there is stuff in there that might be evergreen, or at least if it's not evergreen, then it's perennial or something. We can take that, we can use it, and we can say, okay, well, that's not been and gone. I can still use this and put it somewhere. I think the other thing here, there is another way of repurposing a newsletter content. And that's just by sending it again in your newsletter. We haven't spoken about that either. How do you feel about that, James? How do you feel about maybe resending a whole edition or just recovering topics? How do you feel about that as a thing in newsletters?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fine. I would be mindful of how many new people I have on my list. But there's two ways of going about this. You could wait an appropriate amount of time and resend a newsletter if it's still relevant, and hopefully during that gap you've gained lots of new subscribers and it's still reaching lots of new people, and maybe the people that might have read it a year ago are happy to have that reminder. So I think that's a nice way of doing it. The other approach, and this is probably a different episode, Jamie, is resending an email a couple of days afterwards to those who haven't opened the first one, which is a controversial tactic in the email marketing world, but one that is certainly used by plenty of businesses. So yeah, there are plenty of ways to make your content go further without even straying outside of the inbox.
Nice. Wasn't that a supermarket slogan? Make it go a little further, or?
Yeah, it sounds like a Lidl or an Aldi, I reckon.
Yeah, maybe
There's no way Waitrose is using that, because they do the opposite. It would be very audacious for them to.
Every little helps. Maybe you should just turn your butt to the camera and tap your pocket.
Tap my pocket,
that's the price.
Again, that's another exclusive.
Okay. This premium version.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Next week we're going to talk about, should you repurpose your OnlyFans content?
The answer is obviously yes. Yeah, nice.
Okay. Cool. All right, nice little mini ep for you. Yeah. See you next time. Thanks for listening.
Cheers.
Bye.